Okay, Zoom should be live on my stream. Let's see if it
Yeah.
shows up on YouTube.
Okay. Okay. I think I see it. I know I see it. So thank you, Tim. Um, okay. Yeah, I tried Barnabas. Um, okay. Sorry again for the technical difficulties. Here's the agenda. We'll go ahead and get started. We're a few minutes behind. I am apparently really bad at operating OBS, so apologies. Let's see here. This is consensus layer call 133. And yeah, the agenda is not too packed today, so we'll kind of see how things play out. And yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and hop in. So first up, Roberto had an update on confirmational research he's been doing. Roberto, I think you wanted to share some content. Great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this is a work done by myself, Adichia, Francesco, Luca, and Chigny. We've been working on this for a while. Just give something I think Adichia presented some time ago, but given that there's been some time, I thought of giving a brief overview of what the confirmation rule is, and it's an algorithm that allows determining whether a block will always be part of the canonical chain, even though it's, of course, if a block is finalized, we know that. But this, the idea is to be able to apply this to blocks that are not finalized yet. And another way, it can determine that a block will never be reworked out under some assumption that we'll see later. So there are two properties. One is safety, which is basically what I just said. Essentially, when the confirmation rule says that a block is confirmed, then it means that this block will always be part of the canonical chain of any honest validator. But there is also another property that is one that we kind of have been busy working on that it's actually not that easy to get, is monotonicity, meaning that if a validator sees that a block is confirmed now, it will keep seeing that block as confirmed. So the two things are different. It could be that you see a block that is confirmed and it will be safe, but then let's say in a few minutes you check it again, and the algorithm says that it is actually not confirmed, even though it's actually safe. So, and kind of the two properties, they fight with each other in a way. Trying to achieve both has been a bit of a challenge, but that's one of the things we've been working on. So just very quickly, how it works. It's a bit more complicated than this, but overall, the algorithm looks at two aspects of GASPA, LMD and FFG. For LMD, we look at the ratio between the weight for a block and the maximal weight, and this must be larger than what you see on the right-hand side, whatever is written there, half of this 1 plus the weight of the proposed boost divided by maximum weight plus beta. This must be verified for all the blocks in a chain until you come to the finalized one. And then for the FFG component, we check, again, high level. We check essentially the FFG that is supporting the checkpoint of a block minus what beta is, again, the maximum adversary weight minus basically what can be slashed plus 1 minus beta, which is the weight of the honest multiplied by the ratio of the honest multiplied by the weight of the remaining slots. This must be larger than 2/3 of the total weight of the epoch. And this, in the paper, we show this allows to, together with other conditions, to ensure that this block will never be filtered out by the for choice filtering rule. And so the two things together, they we allow to determine that this block is safe. So I spoke before, there are some assumptions made in terms of safety. I think that pretty expected properties. We need to assume the network is good, synchronous. We have finality for when we assume the network is not synchronous. Also, we assume that given us any sequence of slots, we know that no more than beta of the state controlled by these committees is Byzantine. It's pretty standard. It's pretty, let's say, sort of probabilistic property. We assume, again, beta is less than 1/3, and also we assume that Byzantine validators cannot delay for more than one epoch the inclusion of attestations that justify a checkpoint from the previous epoch. So basically, if by the end of the current epoch, enough attestations have been sent to justify the checkpoint from the current epoch, by the end of the next epoch, these attestations will be included in a block, in one chain. So in a way, you can think of this like there will be at least one honest proposer. True, there are limitations on the block size, but another way is also to potentially think of a change where you allow to include more attestations if those end up justifying a block. In terms of to achieve monotonicity, we need stronger assumptions. Beta must be less than 1/6, and also in a way, we assume that there is a new checkpoint there is always a new checkpoint that is justified in future epochs. The actual assumption is more complicated than this, but you can think it in this way. Lastly, another point that we've been working on that wasn't present in the first work has been dealing with entry, exits, rewards, and penalties. So section 5 of the paper, in the paper we present the algorithms in increased order of complexity. We start with just considering LMD cost, then we move to considering FFG, and then we also initially considering only basically no changes to the validator set except for slashing. And then in the last section, we show an algorithm that can actually deal with entry, exits, rewards, and penalties. Actually, the structure of the algorithm is exactly the same as the one that doesn't deal with this problem. The only thing that changes are the thresholds that I showed you before. So those thresholds in the more extended algorithm, they also have components that take into account the reward ratio, penalty ratio, and churn ratio. Currently, there is spec PR of the confirmation rule has been updated as well to reflect the algorithm that we have in the paper. The algorithm there is the one that does not assume entering, exit, rewards, and penalties just because there wasn't enough time. And again, as I said, it's just the only difference here. Some factors that must be multiplied in the former, but the overall structure is the same. So in our opinion, that spec PR is ready for review and for comments. This is all from me.
Great, thanks. Do you mind dropping a link to the slides, or if there's somewhere people could follow up with your work? That'd be really nice.
Yeah. I'll drop a few links. Drop the link to it.
Great, thanks. Anyone have any questions? Okay, also a PR in the consensus specs repo. Great, yeah, thanks, Roberto.
No worries, thank you.
Okay, I wanted to cue that up first. Just go ahead and work around the time zones with Roberto. So next up, we'll move to Electra. Again, there was a quick question about EIP 7547. This is the inclusion list EIP. Andrew was asking essentially if, the EIP won't go into Electra, should we change the CFI status? I think that was, I don't know if Andrew's on the call, but either way, that was basically the question. Generally, I think if we CFI something, there's no like formal bearing on inclusion in this sense. And so we don't really un-CFI things. I don't know if anyone feels differently.
I guess, yeah, usually what we do is we just un-CFI it when we have a final scope for the fork and we just remove everything that's been CFI'd and just keep the stuff that's included. If it's simpler, if like we really agree now that we're not going to do this, we can remove it from the list now. But yeah, no strong opinion.
I think it's
It'll get
fine
removed.
to delay for the time being. Yeah, I mean, in some sense, CFI is almost like immortal status. You could imagine if something's been CFI'd, it's always CFI'd.
Yeah, at least for this fork, right? And then can discuss for the next one. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess it can change. Okay. Okay, next up, wanted to get into Devnet 0 and everything there. So the first thing to call out, there was a spec release, v150 alpha 1. I think this is mainly bug fixes for the Pectra specs, also PeerDAS test vectors. So thank you everyone who got that together, in particular Xiaowei. I can go grab a link to them in a second, just so everyone has that. Otherwise, yeah, I think, were there any questions or things to call out on the spec there? I think it was pretty straightforward, just fixing some bugs from the Alpha 0 release. Yeah, shall I?
Yeah, so we have received at least 2 issues of the test vectors in the latest test vector release. So I think I will share the link to the chat later. And if any clients have tested, and just let me know if you encounter some issues. And I expected that we will have another hotfix of the test vector early next week. Yep.
Great, thank you. Okay, next up, I did want to talk about just general progress and where everyone is. Let's see, Barnabas dropped this progress tracker in the chat. I'll go ahead and take a look here. Yeah, do client teams want to give an update? How are we feeling about Devnet 0 implementation progress?
So for Lighthouse, I'd say we're making progress. We're mostly focused on the changes related to moving the attestation index, because we were talking about that in Discord a bit, but it does end up being, it touches like a lot of the code base. So that's the majority of our focus right now. We're actually like staging our implementation differently than per EIP. We're sort of like implementing all the EIPs for different components of the code base as we go. So it doesn't quite map to the progress tracker, but solid progress, and we're grinding, I would say.
Great. Sounds good. Anyone else?
From Teco. Oh, yeah, go ahead, please. All right, thanks. Well, yeah, we have also made decent progress, and we for 7549 we are working upon few things, but mostly things seem done as of now. We are making few changes regarding with treating the partial withdrawal request in the new format. But yeah, we should be ready pretty soon. And for Ethereum JS, I just want to add, yes, on that end as well, we are doing good for 7.6. We have incorporated 7.685, and so are sort of integrated into individual EIPs. Yeah, thanks.
Great. Enrico?
So back to Taco. We are complete on 6110 and 7002, and we are close to be ready for the max EB EIP, and work in progress for the attestation one. This is 7549. What is missing there mostly is the aggregation logic, but for now, I guess we should be able to follow a chain in theory. So yeah, still work in progress there, and finalizing MaxEB. The TLDR is there.
Giving an update for Prism. All of the EIPs are being worked on, but we're taking a similar approach to Lighthouse, where we're sort of handling cross components. We're doing like all the block changes, all the state changes, sort of separately. And the 7549 slowed us down a little bit because of how many things it touches. But we're making progress.
So for Grandina team, we progressed a lot on all the EIPs, except that there is really huge work still need to be done on attestations refactoring. So I did raise this question on Telegram. But it feels from the update from the other teams, it feels that other teams are progressing quite good, and it doesn't feel that the teams will not be able to do this huge refactoring. So correct me if I understood that correctly.
Yeah, sounds pretty good so far. I think Dustin, you're going to give an MS update.
Yeah, so I was in general, I'm going to echo in terms of say what Lighthouse was saying about like kind of not implementing. I'm going EIP by EIP, but rather say sort of set of test vectors by set of test vectors, or a set of sort of portion of code base by portion of code base. That being said, viewing it by EIPs, I think I would say as far as I can tell, we're okay on 6110. From this is the CL side, obviously. 6110s, 7002, and 7251, I believe those should all be, I mean, at least okay enough for DevNet 0. As usual, and this is I would agree that this is 7549 is a challenge, and it's I don't know, it's underway. And I guess my approach here is to try to make sure that there's something it can minimally the kind of following the chain is my criteria here. So there may or may not be able to, for the 7549 related stuff. I'll just say this, for example, Nimbus has no intention of posting attestation slashings. Like it's fixable. It's not worth fixing in time. That's one of the things affected. It's one of the little bits of fallout from 7549. We need another attestation slashing.
You just mean for DevNet 0, right?
Yeah, eventually
Yeah,
at the end. But I'm saying it's
right.
not. It won't break consensus, and other clients can lose that. But we've had to just prioritize one. But we're attempting to get this working. It looks maybe okay, but for a very limited view of okay, honestly. Like this is, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it'll work well enough.
Great.
Nimbus does a lot of type level stuff in its construction, and it's so yeah. The rest are there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll take well enough. Great. I think that was every CL team. And yeah, it sounds like things are progressing well enough. Ideally, we should be looking at Devnet 0, say in 10 days. So I know, again, it's like a very tight timeline, but sounds like everyone is moving towards that. So I think we keep things as is. There was this question brought up of maybe changing Devnet 0 scope. It sounds like, again, this attestation refactor is like pretty involved for everyone. But also it sounds like at least 1 or 2 teams are pretty confident that that part will be fine. So yeah, I guess this is now your chance. If we want to have this conversation, we can talk about this, but I think generally we should keep things as is for the time being. Does anyone feel incredibly strongly otherwise?
Going back for Tego will be a super pain, and I would think that we would stick into the attestation no matter what. So if the thing is to participating or not participating in Devnet 0, I would say if we go back, I don't know if Tego will be able to participate at this point.
Right. And the thing is, we do just need 1 CL and 1 EL to start a DevNet. So if it takes a day or 2 after, say, this 10-day deadline for others to join, we can still make progress on the actual initial DevNet as other people round out their implementations. So I know it's a very tight timeline, and yeah, it's, I'm sure, very stressful for everyone, but it sounds like we can make it. So I would lean towards keeping everything as is for now.
So I guess I'm a little less concerned with whether it's in Devnet 0, and I think that's sure. But the question of, I guess my concern is that this seems to have potentially snuck in a little bit as a, let me say it was framed and during the ACD call as a more minor change than ended up being. And part of this, I think, is in terms of the logic of the change, there wasn't a huge amount in some level. It's quote unquote just moving a field around. It was not pages of if then statements. But and so I guess I have some kind of process concern there of sort of, I think that there was a process failure in a way.
Yeah, I kind of get that. It definitely looks a lot simpler spec'd out than like actually an implementation. And it seems like, I don't know, like how do we readjust our, I guess, fork scoping after we start the implementation if we want to in the future?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way of putting it. And to say that I think every one of these EIPs, which was considered, which has been considered, people have looked at in their various ways, kind of the phrase it in various ways: ROIs, the risk return, the benefit, cost benefit, some kind of, relatively speaking, a ratio. Is it worth implementing this EIP? And this one was framed as kind of, well, why not? Isn't it kind of nice? And maybe, but
And to add to that, I think there has
but I
been
think there should
also
at least
some. Sorry. But I was just adding to your comment about saying that the initial framing of that was also that it will be some very nice benefits in terms of networking, and there has been a little bit of misconception initially, and then this turned out that it's just block space that benefits for it in the current form. And you're right that we probably underestimated the impact in the code bases, because touching the attestation that is simply the same since phase 0 has been underestimated how painful would have been to change the format, even just adding a field. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense, what everyone's saying. Takeaways, I think in the future, when we touch types, we should just be very mindful of this. Again, it seems like, I mean, there are benefits. It's not that it's a useless EIP. And if anything, I think it does lay the groundwork for future changes around networking that would unlock even more benefits. So I think the EIP stays in. Yeah, definitely hear everyone that this is a big change, implementation wise, but sounds like we'll make it work. Yeah, Dapline.
Yeah, just to remind a bit, I think what happened here is the original EIP had a slightly different implementation. It only set the index to 0. So by not having the type change, the fix was supposed to be smaller. But then Mikhail proposed some really nice benefits that we should do, and that I think this mutation through the process is, I think, what we missed. And as you recognize, that's what increased the scope in terms of implementation. So yeah, for next time, if an EIP mutates, we should be mindful of the consequences, even if it's already considered for inclusion.
Right. And just to I guess state the obvious, this is the process, right? We have EIPs, if they sound good enough to everyone, then we, include them in some sense. And it is the point of then downstream implementation of that to sort of raise these issues. I think everyone's just feeling a little extra pain because of pretty tight timelines. So yeah, I hear everyone. And yeah, these are all things we should be keeping in mind moving forward. And yeah, that being said, I do think that we'll make it happen. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. Sean?
Something we're trying to move more towards in Lighthouse is more flexibility with individual EIP implementations. So the ability to enable, disable single features, and that would let us more easily pull things out of forks, move them to separate forks. If we could similarly move towards something like that at the spec level too, that would be even better, because then it'd be easier to get vectors that are testing individual features and then different combinations of features. And yeah, it might help in scenario like those.
Yeah, and generally we have this features notion in the consensus specs that gives you that. I think again, maybe just due to the timelines, it's we didn't necessarily have these test vectors, these independent ones per EIP just ready to go. Terrence asked a question. Let me go look at this link. Right. Yeah. So Terrence was asking about an addition to 7549. This was making essentially the representation a little more flexible on chain. And yeah, that is out of scope for Devnet 0. And yeah, the idea would probably be to include it in later Devnets. But again, we are focusing on just Devnet 0 for now, and then we'll handle that down the road. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for your comments. I think that was some good reflection. And yeah, definitely things we should all keep in mind moving forward. Is there anything else? Otherwise, we can move on to another presentation on a new EIP.
Could we maybe get a timeline on like when is the first CL would be ready? Because we initially tried to do it like last week, and now we push the time to like the 6th of May. But is any CL team actually can see if they would be ready by next week, Monday?
We wouldn't be ready by Monday now. I think 10-ish days we're targeting.
We might have something for Monday, but maybe probably high probability with being broken. So we were thinking more about targeting mid next week to have something more stable. But I even see the benefit if we have something kind of working to spin up some devnets by Monday or Tuesday and see where they break.
Yeah, we'd be doing this stuff locally, so the cost of stuff failing is extremely low.
Yeah, I think Devnet 0 could possibly wait till Kenya, and then we would just do all local testing all next week still.
Okay, great. Sounds like everyone will be very busy. Good luck with the rest of the implementation. So next up, I think this is Vasily. He wanted to give a short presentation over EIP 7684. Would you like to do that?
Yeah. Hey. I'm going to post 2 links into the call chat, so be with me for now. Yeah. So there is an EIP 7684 by Dapline. The gist is at this moment when there is a deposit coming for invalid data on Beacon chain to that already exists, then it doesn't matter what withdrawal credentials are in the deposit that is coming. What only matters what our withdrawal credentials are for the validator that already exists. So imagine there is, for example, a malicious node operator who is accepting a delegated stake. They provide deposit data to the client. Client posts a deposit transaction, and the malicious validator front runs this transaction with their own deposit, with their own withdrawal credentials. And the staker who wanted to just delegate their Ether will be gifting them to the malicious node operator. This is so-called deposit front run vulnerability. It's a pretty subtle one, like it was pointed out at I think like half a year before the Beacon chain launched, but it was actually found in the code of Rocket Pool and Lido back in the day, and both protocol teams had to like fix it ASAP just before the launch of Rocket Pool, as far as I remember. This is mostly mitigated in largest protocols and probably mitigated in the largest custodial services like exchanges and custodies. Though the second one is like just probably true. There is no way of checking. But these mitigations are pretty cumbersome or capital inefficient. Like there are basically 2. One is just-in-time checking the deposit, like Lido does with a special committee to check it. This is was in the trust model, and costs development, costs operation, and like increases brittleness. There is an option of only allocating stake to the validator that are pre-deposited, but this limits like this makes model capital efficient, because if there is not enough stake coming, then this pre-deposit validators are just sitting there like doing nothing. this makes the process of stake delegation like two-step process, which is like makes it more cumbersome and worse user experience. Most of the stake in existence actually just win it. They don't like clients, the stakers don't check that the validator is not on chain. The node operator does not provide a mitigation. That is entirely like a trust issue. I don't think it has been exploited in in actual life. There is I think like 5 or 6 deposits that override withdrawal credentials, but they mostly look like honest mistakes, like 0x0 withdrawal credentials, something like that. But there is like 7684 proposes a pretty simple fix here. Now when withdrawals are possible, when a deposit comes with a withdrawal credential that is different from the validator that is actually registered on Beacon chain, this ether can immediately be withdrawn to the back to the execution layer, maybe with like some fee to prevent spam or something like that. I think like I'm not sure, like I'm pretty sure that it's pretty late to get anything to Pectra at this point, but I'm pretty sure this is would be a good change for Ethereum staking mechanism.
Got it. Thanks. I've had time to look at the CIP in depth. I hear you on the concern. Does anyone else have any thoughts or comments at the moment? Otherwise, we might need a few minutes to digest. I guess one question is, if we wanted to move ahead with this EIP, would you be pushing for Electra, the F-star fork, or you're more just wanting to raise awareness today?
My intuition that is like a super small proposal that is like entirely can fit like I don't know, but like not much work. But I'm not a client developer, and that's like what I wanted to understand, what the feeling people have. Like, is it something that is so small that can fit into Pectra last minute, or if it's even desirable at all, right? What's the public sentiment on this? Or that is like just something that I'm presenting for now to raise awareness.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so regarding complexity, so unless someone finds a more clever way to do it than what I found, there is an interesting quirk about withdraws. And after EIP 61110, there is a recursive dependency on building blocks. The execution layer needs to be supplied from the consensus layer. What are the withdrawals that have to be processed? And then the block of the consensus cannot be dependent on these withdrawals. Otherwise, we have a recursive dependency. So the solution of this EIP is to evict immediately any withdrawal that attempts to have different withdrawal credentials. But because of this recursive dependency, we cannot immediately withdraw a deposit. What that means is that we have to accumulate the withdrawals in the state and then process them afterwards. And after EIP 61110, the amount of deposits is not bounded anymore. And I think the maximum number at current gas parameters is about 1,200, which means that either we can have an unbounded queue of pending withdrawable deposits on the state, or we have to remove the cap of withdrawals if we want to evict all these undesirable withdrawals deposits, sorry, within the next block. So that's something that we have to talk with the execution teams to see how much of an issue it is to have unbounded withdrawals or up to 1,300. So it's not terribly complex, but definitely I would not consider something trivial. And yeah, I think it's good that we look at this solution and see if we can find something simpler. But I'm not sure if this fits for Electra.
Right. Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think we'd probably need a couple of months just to digest, consider different solutions, and then get to like sort of a final EIP. So, that process will need to play out, and then ultimately, I guess this is the place to come back once that's done, and then we can see where things have stacked up.
Yeah, and as a final comment, I think to motivate this solution, this affects every single LST or future LST protocol, and especially for those that want to be maximally trustless. Definitely all the solutions involve some sort of heavy trade-off or centralized actor. So it's definitely an equalizing force, agnostic to any specific LST.
Yeah, in general, like this is the tax on development instead of like a straight blocker for implementing like trusted things, but it's a pretty significant tax actually. A lot of efforts going into mitigating this.
Okay, good to know. So yeah, everyone just please take a look when you have some time. And yeah, we'll keep it on our radar. Okay, next I wanted to leave some time for PeerDAS. I don't know if anyone has any update there. I know the client teams have been pretty busy with Pectra. There has been some work on the spec lately. Like I said, there are some test vectors even released in this Alpha 1 consensus specs release. So it's really exciting to see the progress there. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to discuss right now with respect to PeerDAS, either an implementation update or spec update, spec questions, anything like that.
For Lodestar, I've been working on PeerDAS for last 2 weeks, and basically we'll try a local Lodestar to Lodestar all custody testnet, and if that works, then we'll try to integrate with any other peer that is out there.
Great, good to hear. Yeah, Dabline.
Lighthouse, I think as of yesterday, we have completed sampling Lighthouse only testnet. So as of now, we can produce blocks with garbage extended data. We are not actually using CKCG library yet, I think. We can custody, we can serve custody, and we can do sampling. Some specifics of what we are going for. We are going for trailing DA at the moment. We are not using yet the new network shards formula, but we plan to do that this week. And we implemented a feature that was suggested by the Codex team, I think, where we allow, so as a custody serving, we allow people to request the samples before we have them, and then we put that request on hold, and we will resolve this request once we get the custody samples from Gossip. So it will be cool to agree on this set of features with everyone. Otherwise, we'll have interop problems. That's it for me.
Nishant?
Yeah, so on Prism's end, we've been making good progress on PeerDAS implementation. We are right now in the process of trying to get a Prism to Prism node working. So we have integrated all the CKZG PeerDAS methods. So it seems to be working for us. We're still running into issues with getting the columns gossiped out, having a block proposed with the extended columns being received by the other Prism peers. But we are positive that by interop, we will be able to communicate with other clients, at least as the current spec as it is.
Okay, that's great news. Yeah, Enrico?
Just an update from Teco. I don't have the details, but there is a branch in work in progress, and we could have something. Yeah, we could hack something maybe during the interop, but not sure.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and Dapline, I think I might have glossed over this. Did you have a question around the spec or like sort of what to initially target?
Yeah. So I think that the two questions, and I'm not sure if the spec is precise on this. So first one is if we're gonna do trailing DA or same slot DA. I don't think we have agreed on either way yet. And then the second one is this feature of if someone requests your custody column that you are supposed to have, but you don't yet have, instead of returning immediately resource unavailable, you hold this request for some time in the expectation that you will get the column. And if you do not, after some time out, then the request gets canceled, and that's okay. But if you get the custody within this window, then you resolve the request. And what that allows is to have a zero lag dissemination mechanism without actually having to do many retries or having gossip amplification.
Right. The latest I heard on the first point with regards to the trailing fork choice, I think Lighthouse was thinking that they would not do it, but then the latest I heard is that they would do it. So I'm not sure anyone else has enough implementation to have like a strong view on that right now.
Yeah, I can summarize. We had a chat internally about this, and I think what we realize is that if you don't do trailing DA, then the timing game pressure would be very, very high because you will be supposed to perform all the sampling within a very short time window between when you receive the block and when you have to attest. So those peers that do not have very, very fast internet connections, they will suffer as builders and proposers will delay the block as much as possible to get enough votes at the expense of the slowest peers on the network. If we do trailing DA, then at least you would have 12 seconds, and then there is no much pressure. You only have like the situation would not be worse than today. You just have to press the block soon enough.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if there's a middle ground. We've talked before about moving the attestation deadline to say like 8 seconds rather than 4, which with respect to timing games maybe doesn't change much.
No,
But
I think that doesn't fix anything because then you will just publish the block later.
Right. Yeah. What is?
Yeah, so I can't speak for PeerDAS, but if by training the A, it's only this, its own port choices, this implementation of filtering the branches where you don't have them and act like that, that would be a very simple change in port choice for Prism. So it's easy to implement.
Okay, that's good to hear. It seems like, yeah, the consensus seems to be leaning towards trailing. Solius?
Yeah, for I think for testnets, maybe it makes sense to to not do this trailing fork choice, just for just to try and to see maybe it maybe the old way doesn't work on a small testnet for some reason. So then we can automatically roll out that. That would be one argument. The other argument that so far the fork choice was always always protected from these blocks that are not available. So far the current approach is to include the block only when this data available is true. So this trailing fork choice is I would say a very different approach than we have now.
Right. Yeah, there's another comment from Nishant. We should just increase the custody counts and not use trailing. You get stronger DA guarantees from gossip. So yeah, it sounds like we're actually kind of undecided on this. You do have a point that maybe just for like initial implementations, it's simpler to do non-trailing, like synchronous within the same slot. So there's some benefit there. Although it kind of sounds like we are undecided.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
in practice it doesn't matter. Like we definitely don't want to do that for mainnet eventually, but for an initial interop, people can just sample whenever they want and it should be fine. Because it only impacts your local view of the fork choice.
Right.
Yeah. For interop, I don't think we need to actually align so much on how we're going to sample, because it just matters for your local view. So you could have some nodes doing trailing and some nodes not doing it, and technically the network should still function fine.
Right. So then I guess it sounds like do whatever is easiest for your implementation. At least to get started. And I guess we can come to some stronger consensus on this down the line. Okay, thanks everyone for that. Anything else anyone would like to bring up? I think otherwise, yeah, we can go ahead and close out the call here in a few minutes. Solius, your hand is still up. I don't know if that was from the last time. I'll assume it was, unless you say something. I guess just the conversation now does kind of bring to mind that we might eventually want to break out for PeerDAS to dig into some of these things. But that can happen after we get the first Devnet running. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it for the day. I do have one final remark. We'll go ahead and cancel the next AC/DC. Many of us will be working at an interop, so it will not make sense to have the call. That means the next AC/DC will be May 30th at the usual time. So I'll post again in the usual channels just to remind everyone, but just keep that in mind. And I think that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Record.